courage of the plates? The sun had dipped below the horizon, casting long purple shadows over the desert. Nephi and his brothers stood at the edge of the great stone walls of Jerusalem. They had been sent on a difficult mission by their father, Lehi, to retrieve the brass plates, ancient records that held the history and laws of their people. But the city felt cold and unwelcoming. Laban gripped his cloak, his eyes darting toward the massive city gates with worry. "It is impossible," Laban whispered, his voice trembling in the night air. Beside him, Lemuel nodded in agreement, his arms crossed tightly over his chest. They had already tried to get the plates twice, and both times they had failed, narrowly escaping the guards of the powerful and greedy Laban. They wanted to turn back, to return to their father in the wilderness empty-handed. But Nephi knew they could not give up on what was right. Nephi turned to his brothers and told them to wait. He stepped away from the safety of the shadows and walked toward the city alone. He did not have a map or a plan this time. He moved quietly through the darkened streets, his heart quiet and listening. He felt a gentle, persistent nudge in his soul. The Spirit of the Lord was guiding his feet, though he did not yet know where he was going. As he turned a corner near the house of Laban, Nephi stumbled upon a man slumped against a wall, fast asleep in the shadows. It was Laban himself, dressed in his fine robes and heavy armor. He had fallen into a deep sleep after a night of feasting. Nephi looked down at the man who had treated his family so poorly, and then his eyes fell upon something gleaming in the moonlight, Laban's sword. Nephi reached out and drew the sword from its sheath. The hilt was made of pure gold, and the blade was crafted from the finest steel. As he held the weapon, a voice within him told him that Laban had tried to take his life and had refused to obey the commandments. For the sake of his future family and his entire nation, the records held on the brass plates had to be secured. With the task completed and guided by the Spirit, Nephi knew he had to act quickly. He dressed himself in Laban's heavy armor and wrapped Laban's robes around his shoulders. He even placed Laban's helmet upon his head. Now, in the dim light of the flickering street lamps, he looked exactly like the powerful man who had once threatened him. He walked toward the treasury where the plates were kept. At the treasury, Nephi found Zoram, the servant who held the keys to the records. Because of the disguise and the darkness, Zoram believed Nephi was truly his master, Laban. Nephi spoke in a deep voice, commanding Zoram to bring the brass plates. Zoram obeyed immediately, carrying the heavy, shimmering metal plates out into the street. They began to walk toward the city gates together. As they walked, Zoram talked about the elders of the city, thinking he was conversing with Laban. Nephi listened intently, nodding and keeping his face hidden. They passed the guards at the gate, who bowed as they went by. They were finally outside the walls, heading toward the spot where Nephi's brothers were hiding in the dark. The weight of the plates was a reminder of the sacred history they were saving. When Laban and Lemuel saw the figure in Laban's armor approaching with a servant, they gasped in terror. "It is Laban," Laban cried, and the two brothers turned to run into the desert, fearing for their lives. They didn't realize that the man in the golden helmet was actually their younger brother. Nephi quickly called out to them, his voice echoing across the sand. When Zoram realized that Nephi was not Laban, he grew frightened, but Nephi spoke kindly to him. He promised Zoram that if he stayed with them, he would be a free man and a part of their family. Zoram looked at Nephi's honest face and felt the peace of the Spirit. He agreed to join them. Together, the group began their journey back to the wilderness, carrying the precious records that would guide their people for generations to come.